And I just have this vision, 1,500 people all coming together, worshiping the Lord. And it wasn't really to reach out to new people per se, though obviously we would welcome anybody, but it was so our church could all be together. The moment you kind of break over that, now you've got to figure out ways, how do we care for each other in smaller groups, in circles, instead of just sitting in rows every Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back to Live from Springfield, USA. I'm Ted Dryden, your host, and this episode is sponsored by Heritage Fellowship Church. Today, Pastor Ken Winter joins us to talk about his journey to Springfield, the community at Heritage Fellowship Church, and the Church in the Park on Sunday, August 30th at Veterans Park Amphitheater. Full event details are available at heritagefc.net.
That's right.
Pastor Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, Ted, thank you for having me on the show today, or the podcast. Excited to be here just to talk about what God's doing in Springfield. I've been in Springfield for 10 years now. I've lived in Ohio for 17. Married to my beautiful wife, Tara, for 28 years. We have 3 kids, 3 adult children. So our oldest 2 are married, and our youngest is just turned 21. He is in school, also a Army Reserve combat medic. So proud of him. But yeah, we just became grandparents this last year, so that's exciting. I'm still very young, I would say, and so it's fun to be a grandparent with energy. And I've been in ministry since 2002. Got called. Did not think I was ever going to be a pastor. My dad was a pastor, and I did everything to run from that ministry, that job, and here I am, 22 years later.
Awesome. Well, I want to learn more about that. So Ken, who is Ken Winter when he's off the clock?
Oh man, who is Ken Winter when I'm off the clock? Well, ministry, I only work 1 day a week, and so I'm off the clock quite a bit. That's kind of a joke.
Are you though?
Ministry is 24/7. You kind of live, breathe, eat church ministry, but I love it. Yeah. What do I do when I'm not doing ministry? I mean, as my kids were growing up, I loved to coach. So I coach my kids in soccer, baseball, football. But now that my kids are all grown, I have a little bit more free time. So I love to hike. I love to camp. I love to stay fit, healthy. I've ran a mini triathlon, tried to stay as fit as I can in my late 40s. So enjoy, obviously, spending time with my wife now that we're empty nesters. So it's a kind of a new experience. We got married when we were 19 and 20. So now on the flip side, we're getting to spend that time together a little bit older.
Awesome. No, that's great. So you've lived and served in a few different places. What has each stop taught you about people?
Yeah, it's good. So I grew up in a Presbyterian home. So my dad's a Presbyterian pastor. And then when I got into ministry, I worked at a Methodist church. And then when we came out to Ohio, I worked at a Southern Baptist church. And now that I am at Heritage Fellowship, it's a non-denominational church. So I'm a denominational mutt, I kind of joke. But what's been cool about that experience is I've just got to meet people on lots of different parts of their journey, their spiritual journey. I know a lot about different denominations, what they believe, how we're similar, maybe how we're different. And so I've just got to meet a lot of different people along the way. Being in youth ministry for 15 years, got to work with students. And then being a lead pastor, it's just students that are a little bit older. And so I really enjoy it.
Yeah. What first pulled you towards ministry, and what was the moment you knew it was the path?
Yeah, it's a good question. So like I said earlier, definitely did not think that I would be a pastor growing up. In fact, a lot of times people say, "Are you a typical pastor's kid?" And I said, "What do you mean by that?" They say, "Did you rebel?" And I said, "Yeah, I basically ran the other way. Did a lot of the things that I wanted to do as a high school kid, and then didn't come to know Jesus until I was 19 through some pretty significant things that happened in my life. Got married, had a child young, and next thing I know, we're just trying to figure out how to survive. And so I became a ShamWow salesman, and if you don't know what the ShamWow is, it's basically the big orange rag that uses to clean your car. Or what I would do is I would suck a pop from a carpet and just wring it out, and people would be amazed. And so I did that for 3 years, and so traveled all over the country, made a lot of money. It was fun, but it didn't really bring the satisfaction or maybe the purpose that I think I was missing in my life. And so I remember just praying a lot. Again, being a new believer, 21 years old, trying to take care of my wife, take care of my little daughter, was asking a lot of those hard questions. A friend of mine in Philadelphia, when we were living there at the time, said, "Hey, you really should come on a mission trip with us." And I didn't feel like I was really qualified or worthy to go on a trip and lead others, but he just kind of kept pursuing me. And so finally I said yes. So we went down to Atlanta, Georgia, and basically it was a work project where we were fixing a house. And I spent probably 5 of the 6 days in a bathroom with a couple other guys fixing a toilet that I had no business fixing because I'm not a handyman. But at the end of the trip, we were having a kind of a round table discussion, and one of the students looked at me and said, Ken, you're the greatest youth pastor I've ever had. And I remember in that moment being shocked that anybody would ever say that of me because I didn't think of myself that way. But it was almost like there was these walls that maybe I'd created in my life that kind of fell apart. And for the first time, I felt like the Spirit was saying, "Hey, Ken, you can do this." Came home, talked to another friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, what would you think about me getting into ministry?" And he said, "Ken, I've been waiting for you to say that." And so long story short, put my name out there with absolutely no resume, no credentials, no experience, and God opened the door in 2002 to become a youth pastor.
Awesome. And you just kind of, stole my thunder. I was going to ask you, what's something about that would surprise people who only see you on Sunday? And I did do my research, and I saw the thing about ShamWow.
Yeah.
So, I imagine that. Because I remember going to, a lot of fairs. I remember the state fair had that full ShamWow display.
That was probably me. There's a few ShamWow guys, but just cool story. Obviously we got married. We were trying to figure it out. I was working at a lumber yard. A friend of mine said, "Hey, Ken, my brother-in-law went out to California to become an actor." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." But he failed, which most people do. But he met a guy who owns this company where they do infomercial sales, and he travels all over the country, and he sells the Ginsu knife and the carpet cleaner and the chamois. I was like, "What's a chamois?" He said, "Well, why don't you come with me to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I'll show you." So I said, "All right." So I fly to Green Bay with him. He sets up this booth, big orange rags. It was cold. It was miserable. 3 days of just constant selling. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. And then I said, "Well, how'd you do?" And he said, "I made $1,500 in 2 days." I said, "You made $1,500 in 2 days?" I'm in. So that was the beginning. And I traveled every weekend for 3 years all over the country. In fact, I've been to every state except for Alaska. So that's a bucket list. I want to go there. But yeah, I worked at fairs, basically selling Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day long. But what was really neat about that experience was I wasn't really a communicator before that. But you kind of mentioned, how did you learn to communicate or meet different people? I met people in every state. I learned how to interact with New Yorkers. I learned how to talk to Californians, people in the South. And so
I was going to ask you if that was part of, trial by fire to get you comfortable,
Yeah.
Obviously it's different than being a pastor, but
comfortable in talking to people from all sorts of walks of life. Yeah. And I didn't know it at the time, but God was using that to kind of equip me to communicate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it was pretty neat. One other thing that's just kind of interesting, I have a huge desire to be on a reality show called Survivor. Have not been called to be on that, but in the process of that, I was able to be on the show American Ninja Warrior back in 2015, and then I was on a game show called Candy Crush, which if you've ever played the game on your phone, it was a live action game in LA. Didn't really hit big because it was only a one-hit wonder, but got to compete to try to win $100,000. Didn't win. But it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
So I kind of have this weird, fun, I like to do crazy stuff like that.
Right. And I'm sure that does help you on the stage on Sunday mornings sometimes too. I suppose you have all kinds of fun anecdotes that you can tie into.
God gives me stories and illustrations from some of the things I was able to experience. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
The journey to Springfield. So let's talk about your journey to Springfield. You came to Heritage in 2017. What brought you to Springfield specifically?
Yeah. So we live just south of Springfield. We've been in Ohio since 2007. What brought us to Ohio was I was taking classes to finish school, but I was also looking for an opportunity to coach soccer at the collegiate level. And so Cedarville University, which is just south of Springfield, opened up an opportunity for me to coach as well as finish classes. So we came in 2007, did that for a few years till 2010. And that was when just the Lord brought me back into ministry and was like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I did a lot of ministry south of Springfield. In fact, I didn't come up to Springfield a lot. In all honesty, I was like, why do I need to go to Springfield? Everything was kind of east or west or south. And when my my previous position at a church in Xenia, Ohio was kind of coming to an end, one of the things that I was thinking was maybe the Lord wants to take us away from Ohio. So I started praying and investigating churches and places all over the country. And again, I'm comfortable with that because I traveled the country. But my wife, who is a fierce prayer warrior, was praying fiercely that there would be a church locally. And I just said, I can't imagine any church that's within 20 miles that's going to be available. Well, again, long story short, a friend of mine said, hey, there's a small church on the west side of Springfield that's dying that needs a pastor. And I was like, small dying church, I don't really think that's for me. Maybe that was a little bit of pride. Maybe that was a little bit of I had other expectations or thoughts of what maybe God was going to do in my life. But my wife said, we are going to meet them. And I said, all right. I share that about my wife because I kind of brought her to Ohio kicking and screaming. Her family got off the boat in like 17 something and they never left the East Coast. So bringing her to Ohio was a hard thing. And so now that we had put down roots for a number of years, she didn't want to leave, which I understand. We met with the church and fell in love with the people immediately. And they offered me the position. And I said, you know what, maybe I'll just come up to Springfield for a year. That's really what I was committing. I'll go for a year. I'll get a little bit of experience. I'd never been a lead pastor before. We'll love people. We'll preach the gospel and see what happens. Well, here we are almost 10 years later. And I tell you, Springfield is home. Springfield has been a place that we love to not only do ministry, but fellowship and hang out and have fun. I mean, there's just so much to do. So we fell in love with the people, fell in love with what God's doing here. And it's been exciting the last 10 years.
Yeah. And I remember, I mean, I had to have been in that time frame. I remember hearing your name quite often. I'm surprised it's taken this long to finally meet you. Glad to finally have met you. But yeah, I mean, I remember you did make a mark pretty quickly, and maybe it was because it was you brought life back into that church, and you know you were a conduit to maybe do that in that space.
Yeah, it was, I mean, just humbled to even hear that and to be a part of that. But yeah, God wasn't done with the church, the local church of Heritage Fellowship.
Right.
And really it was the prayers and the faithful commitment of those few. There was 30 people.
Yeah. Wow.
And they were close to closing the doors.
Right.
And
like a lot of churches. That's
unfortunately
common story.
Yeah. But God had other plans. And, you know, again, we went in there and just preached the gospel, loved people. And here we are almost 10 years later, and the church has grown to close to 1,500.
Wow. Yeah. So let's talk about Heritage. Heritage started as a small home Bible study back in 1993. Does any of that foundation spirit still shape the church today?
Yeah, I think, you know, if I were to name drop a couple of those patriarchs and men and women who were part of that beginning, I think the one thing that resonates from their words to me were, you know, we're just people that want to love people and share the grace that God has for them and how the gospel can change their life. That's who we are. We want to know the gospel. We want to grow in that grace, and then we want to take that message into the world and share it with whoever will listen. And so, yeah, I think while we don't meet in a small living room like they did in the beginning, we don't meet in Rockaway School anymore, which we did for a little while. God has blessed us with a property and with land and a building, and now an ability to build and to build onto it. So yeah, the spirit of the people, I think that's the one thing I hear all the time when people come in, is that they feel like this is a place where they feel like home, they feel loved, even with the size that we've grown to.
The church talks about know, grow, go. What does that actually look like week to week?
Yeah, I feel like that's language we want everybody to know, for lack of better terms. But what does it mean to truly know who God is? You know, I think a lot of people, especially in the last couple of years, I think there's this resurgence of just people wanting to know, you know, what's my purpose in life? Who is God? What is God saying to me? And so we believe in God's word. And so we want people to know God's word. So we preach it. We preach what's called expository preaching. So we go through the text verse by verse. We just got through a whole study in Exodus. And so we want people to know their Bibles, and we want to know who God is. But not just head knowledge. We want them to grow in their faith. And so what does that mean? What does that look like? So growing in community, growing with others, and then taking that growth and not just keeping it, but multiplying. So going into their communities, their works, places, their schools to be able to share what they know and how they've grown. And so that's really, I think that's a key part of why HFC has grown, is because people have bought into that vision and mission.
Yeah. So who's the heritage community? Who walks through the doors, and who are you hoping to reach?
So all sorts of people walk through those doors, and we welcome every single person. The hurting, the broken, the curious, the lost, the mature believer. One of the things that has been a real kind of inspiration, but kind of something that I go back to, it's actually on my office wall. It's a quote by Martin Luther that says, "The church is the inn and the infirmary for those who are sick and need of being made well." So when you think about an inn, it's kind of a place you can go and maybe relax or, live, grow, be with people in community. But an infirmary is a place where people are like hurting. They've been wounded. One of the things I've noticed in the Springfield community is that there are a lot of people that maybe grew up in the church and walked away. There may be people that are just asking hard questions, and maybe they don't have a church community. And so a lot of times we see people walking through the doors that, I hate to use the word church hurt, because sometimes people use that as a scapegoat and say, we didn't actually like what they were doing, so we left, but we're going to call it church hurt. Sometimes there is real church hurt. Something happens at the church that is just very difficult for them to process, and they can't stay. And so I'm never about trying to gather church people from other churches. In fact, we actually encourage people to stay, because I would hope that other pastors would want to do the same thing. If someone from Heritage went over to another church in Springfield, I would hope they would say, "Hey, have you done everything that you can to stay there?" Because that's your local community. So we do get other church people through our doors, but I mean, who we're trying to reach are those that do not know who Jesus is, and we want to share the gospel with them, and we want to see lives changed. We have a lot of college students. Cedarville students come up from the north or from the south. We have Wittenberg students, Wright State students, Clark State students, and you walk through our doors, and there's probably a third of the people there are young people, 18 to 23, which I think the older generation loves, because they're seeing youthfulness. We had 26 babies born last year, and we're on pace to have like 32 this year. And so, any given Sunday, you walk in there, and there's dads holding their babies in the lobbies, or babies trying to compete with me during the sermon, which we love to a degree. So it's exciting. It's youthful. And then we've got a ministry called the Golden Buckeyes, which is our 55 and olders. And I would say they're the liveliest, craziest, fun group of people in our church, just because they love each other, and they do a lot of events to fellowship with one another.
Yeah. Sounds like quite a great family group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Going back to the roots, really.
Yeah, for sure.
What's maybe one misconception about the church that you wish you could clear up if someone in Springfield?
One misconception. Well, I mean, you even mentioned it, and there's a couple things that come to mind. I think one, because we're on the west side and we're kind of almost on the very outskirts of Springfield, people don't even maybe necessarily associate our church with Springfield. We're getting closer to Donnellsville, or we get people from New Carlisle. And so, we didn't even know you were here. And I was like, we've been here for 30 plus years. So we're kind of like a diamond in the rough, so to speak. You didn't know we were there, and then you come here like, oh, this is a cool place. I think another thing is that when you grow to a certain size, I think people have a certain maybe misconception. Oh, you're all about numbers, or you're just about, maybe something else. And I would say that's the furthest thing from the truth, because again, when I started there in 2017, the goal was not to become what we are today. The goal was just, hey, let's love the people that God is bringing to us. Let's teach them the truth of God's word, and then just go from there. And the problem with that is that we started going really, really fast, and we started to move in a direction where we had not built some of the infrastructures that needed to be in place to be able to care for the amount of people that were coming. So we're still trying to catch up.
Sure.
We're still trying to figure out how do we do church ministry, and how do we care for all the people that God's bringing to us. And so again, misconception is just sometimes bigger churches get maybe a weird rap or a bad rap because they think that that's what it's about. And I'm like, look, we're staying faithful to the word, and people are desperate. They want to hear truth. There's so much junk in the world. There's so many lies. You can't even tell what's real or not, right, on social media.
Right.
And so when they come into church, wherever they go, I hope that they're hearing the truth. And that's what we preach.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's the bad word. I imagine it's, you probably get lumped in with when people start saying mega church or whatever, whatever that word is. So yeah, I totally.
And I don't even know what mega church means.
No. And I don't think we even have exactly have a mega church. And, I mean, there are a couple large churches and you're not obviously, anyway, I mean, we'll edit some of that out, but yeah, that's the word that kind of popped into my head there. And that kind of does carry a negative connotation once you start hearing the word mega church or something like that.
I think the biggest question there when a church is growing is like, why are we growing and how are we growing? We don't want to grow a mile wide, or, I mean, we don't want to grow, a mile wide, but only an inch deep.
Yeah.
Right. So I think healthy things grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, a big church is not a bad thing either.
Right.
But then, sometimes it carries.
But I mean, verify, why are they growing? If you go in there and the guys, you're preaching something like a prosperity gospel or a health and wealth gospel that's veered away from scriptural truth as we would see it, then you might be growing, but that might not be a healthy growth.
Sure.
And so I believe that when you stand on God's word and you preach the gospel and point people to Jesus, he will draw people to himself.
Right. And then I guess that some of the other practical things in that is, when smaller churches, obviously, and you can still build out those tight-knit communities even in the larger churches or as you get larger, as long as you're intentional, like anything, as long as you're intentional about those things, I think you can still, whether they're the small groups that a lot of churches do or those type of things, or just, just have a lot of people that are very keyed in on those connections.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a church of 200 or a church of 2,000. If you're not involved in community, you're going to feel like you're unseen, or you might feel like you're a number. So I don't think unless you're a church of like 100 or less, which is what most churches are, that's a close-knit family. You kind of know everybody. But the moment you kind of break over that, now you've got to figure out ways, how do we care for each other in smaller groups, in circles, instead of just sitting in rows every Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to... one of the reasons you reached out, you're having this event. You talk about a lot of young people in the right in the heart of Springfield there, the Wittenberg community. Tell me about your Church in the Park event that you've had for how many years?
This will be third year.
Third year. So tell me about Church in the Park.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we went down to Florida about 4 years ago, visiting a pastor friend of ours, and we were just praying through some potential vision changes that we were looking at, and they shared this vision that they had for a couple of years. They've been doing it for maybe 3 or 4 years, where they would come all together. So they're called a multi-site church campus, or a multi-site movement, where they're one church with 4 or 5 different campuses. And so the reason why they would do this Church in the Park event was to get everybody together in one big service. Yeah. Well, that really resonated with me because we have 3 services on a Sunday. And so if you come at 8:30 and you come at 11:30, you don't really ever see each other. So in a sense, we're a couple of different churches, not technically, but we feel like we are separate churches because of our multiple services. Yeah. So I said, man, we should do a one big service all together. And so that kind of birthed the first Church in the Park back in 2025. And we looked for different venues. We looked at, Veterans Park there in downtown Springfield. It was like, this is perfect. I've been to a couple of the events that happened during the summer, and it's an awesome venue. And I just had this vision, 1,500 people all coming together, worshiping the Lord. And it wasn't really to reach out to new people per se, though obviously we would welcome anybody, but it was so our church could all be together. One service, worshiping God, hearing the word.
So why take Sunday service out of the building and into Veterans Park? Well, you just answered that, but
yeah. Well, and the church is the ecclesia, right? That's the word for the gathering or the called out ones. And so the church is not limited to 4 walls.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's some logistical challenges of moving everything to another location. In fact, we had people the first year say, hey, we showed up and there was nobody there. We've been advertising this for like a month and a half. But yeah, it was just so fun. And the Veterans Park in Springfield community was great for hosting us.
So what do you want the morning to feel like for the family that shows up?
So this year specifically, our vision is a little bit different. We are obviously inviting our entire church community, which, if everybody came on a Sunday, we would be somewhere in that neighborhood of 1,600 people, which, people come 1.8 times a month. So if everybody came on the same Sunday to any given church, you would probably feel overwhelmed. But with Church in the Park, you can have 5,000 plus at that Veterans Park. So I want a family to come and feel the presence of the body of Christ together, but almost like an anticipation of God's going to do something. And part of the reason why is because we've done baptisms the last couple of years. And year one, we had people sign up that had recently either accepted Christ and that was their next step, or, we were anticipating maybe there would be people there at the actual service that Sunday, accept Christ and want to take that next step. We had 53 people go public with their faith in baptism. Last year, it was closer to 67 people. And so this year, we're praying. I mean, I love to think big. Maybe that's my ShamWow guy coming out. Like, I anticipate God can do whatever he wants, and we're gonna praise him for whatever results he gives us. But we're praying, and I've been praying for over 100 people to be baptized, people to make a step of faith. And so when a family comes, I want them to experience an encounter with the Lord, an encounter with the Spirit, and that they would be not only encouraged, challenged, but if they don't know Jesus, which is we're targeting as many people. I'm praying for 3,000, which is a big jump because last year we were just under 2,000. I'm praying for 3,000 people from Springfield to show up, Wittenberg students to show up, and for them to hear the gospel.
Gotcha. So you have a day of teaching, music, baptisms, food trucks.
Yeah, we have the park until like 2:00, and so it starts at 10, goes till 2 or 3, might be 3. But the service will end, and then we just want people to spend time together. And so again, it's part of catering to that fellowship idea of our church being together and not just coming to church, checking the box, and leaving. But yeah, food trucks, we'll have 7, 8, 9, 10 of those there. Coffee, different food, different local Springfield food trucks, which is great. We have kids activities and events. Our children's director will be hosting that. And so, yeah, lots of opportunities just to come, worship, experience God, and then and hang out and meet some people.
Yeah, that's all those pieces do fit together well.
Yeah.
What's meaningful about the baptisms happening out in public community space?
Well, I mean, I think, we believe in the two ordinances of the church. We believe in the Lord's Supper, which is communion, and then baptism. And baptism really is that public declaration of what has happened to you inwardly, spiritually. So while we do not believe that baptism saves you, it is that first step of obedience of saying, look, I know what my life was like before Christ, and now as I've trusted in him for salvation, my old life is gone. The old is gone, the new has come. And so what we say to people is, you've been buried, as Paul says in the New Testament, you've been buried in the likeness of his death and raised to newness of life. So whether that happens in our church building, in a horse trough that we have on stage, or out in public, I mean, it was funny. Last year, we were getting ready to go, and a bunch of the Wittenberg soccer players were running down the hill because they were here for preseason, and they stopped. And my dad, who was from out of town, actually caught them and started talking to them. And I came up, and they were like, "What are you doing? What are those tubs of water doing?" And we got to share with them, hey, this is our Church in the Park event. You guys are more than welcome to come. They couldn't stay last year because they were training. But the baptisms were a huge testimony to life change that was happening. And so to be able to do that in any capacity, we get excited about that.
Yeah. You could have done a baptism with an ice bath for the athletes coming down the hill.
Well, the water was a little cold.
Was it a little cold?
Yeah. We're doing our best to keep those things warm.
Yeah.
This year, we're doing it August 30th. Normally, we've done it kind of that second week or first week of September, depending on when Labor Day is. So we're hoping with August 30th, it's going to be a warmer morning. But for whatever reason, the last 2 years, the Lord thought it would be funny to make the coldest day of the fall be Church in the Park Day. So pray for a warm morning.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's curious but nervous about coming?
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the attraction maybe a little bit to Church in the Park is that it's not a church building. I think sometimes people feel intimidated walking through a church. You're going into God's house, and I'm a sinner, and I don't think God might strike me down if I walk into that building. I've heard that before. So coming to the Church in the Park, it feels maybe a little bit less intimidating. And so, I mean, we're asking our church members and church regular attenders and families, say, hey, if you know somebody that, hasn't been to church before, or maybe for whatever reason is experiencing some sort of pain from a church experience, this is a great opportunity to invite them to an outdoor venue. It feels less intimidating, maybe a little bit more welcoming, and maybe even a little bit of a sense of like space, right? You can set up your own chair.
Right.
You can sit far away if you want to. So I think it creates a welcoming environment. And also, I don't know a lot of people that are doing it. And so it does have that little bit of allure, like, oh, what is this? What, church outside, church at the park? I came there for a Beatles concert. Let's check out the church service. So I think it opens up that opportunity.
What should people bring? And what's the plan if weather doesn't cooperate?
Yeah, so to bring, basically they bring their chairs, their blankets. There's no kids ministry during the service, so obviously some things for the kids while they're kind of sitting there. I mean, we have kids coming to our service all the time, 1st through 5th grade, but obviously if you have smaller kids, something to just kind of keep them occupied. Almost think like an outdoor revival or like a festival. Like, what would you bring to that? You can certainly bring food. You don't have to buy food at the food trucks. Bring something to just be comfortable, bring a blanket, bring a chair. But yeah, I think if it rains, well, Ted, it's not going to rain.
It's not going to rain.
Yeah, we pray pretty hard for that, and we trust the Lord with that. Yeah, that's how I'm going to answer that question. It's not going to rain.
That's fair. How can someone who wants to be baptized or just wants to learn more take the next step?
Yeah, for sure. So we as a church do baptism classes. So in August, the 2 preceding Sundays, we will actually do a class that teaches what is baptism, why do people get baptized. It's not a requirement to be baptized, but we do try to, especially for maybe parents of younger kids, like we really lean into the parents to say, is their kid ready? Do they understand it? Or are they just wanting to do what their friend's doing? So the baptism class helps. And then we have a registration on our website. You just go to next steps. It says baptism and you can sign up right there. And it actually says, I want to be baptized at Church in the Park. And then one of the cool things about our service is if someone decides they want to get baptized, maybe that day they go over to our welcome tent and we actually have people there to receive them and to hear their story. Why are you coming? What's going on? And then we have some of our elders and pastors that are going to receive them, hear their story, talk to them, make sure they understand. We're not just baptizing people through a conveyor belt. Like there's a process of making sure they understand. And maybe they're not ready for baptism and maybe they just need prayer. And we have a big prayer tent for people there as well. So they can sign up before the event or they can sign up the day of.
So when the day's over, what do you hope people will carry into their next week?
That's a good question. I would say, me personally, last year when I left Church in the Park, well, actually, funny story, not funny. As I was getting ready to go up to preach, I wanted to go from behind stage and just look at people, because I just heard this overwhelming worship. It was loud. And I just wanted to see it and experience it. So I opened the door, and as I'm opening the door, I didn't realize there was a yellow jacket nest that was right above there, came down and stung me right in the eye. And I'm not allergic, but I definitely respond a little bit to a bee sting yellow stag. So my whole eye started swelling. Yeah. And I was like, I'm being attacked. I'm being spiritually attacked here. And so I remember getting up there and I was struggling to get through. And I was so excited about the opportunity to share the text. We were starting a new series out of Exodus, and I brought these chains out to talk about the chains of slavery, of sin. And I was feeling like I was battling my own chain of pain in my eye. But at the end of that, I just remember God's grace was just so good. I felt encouraged. I was overwhelmed by them. I tell people a lot of times after baptisms that I saw miracle after miracle after miracle. So I want, like I said at the beginning, I want people to experience the power of God on Sunday at Church in the Park. I want them to be encouraged by the word. The theme this year is called But God. And it comes from the idea of, like, if you were to share your testimony with someone, you would say, here's how I was, but God, and now here's who I am. And so we're going to look at Ephesians 2, and we're going to talk about how we have all been gone astray. We've all been children of wrath. We've all experienced pain. We've all experienced struggles, trials, but God. And so I'm hoping that people walk away with a but God moment.
Awesome. No, thanks for sharing all that. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. Because this is a Springfield podcast, I always like to tie things back into Springfield. So I'm going to deploy a couple quick Springfield type questions, and then maybe a few other follow up. Yeah, nothing's gotcha. It's just kind of fun little questions.
Shoot.
Favorite place to grab a bite or coffee in Springfield?
Great question. I spent a lot of time at Scouts down on Limestone, which used to be Winans.
Yeah.
I am not a Starbucks guy, so no offense to those who love Starbucks, but I like Scouts.
Coffee.
Places to eat. That's a really good question. I'm kind of a traditionalist in terms of I just like Chipotle because of the protein. I get double chicken.
Yeah.
But a couple places my wife and I really like. We like Hi Hat, which is right around the corner from here.
Yeah.
They've got some great food options, and everything that we've ordered there has been really good. Other places, I mean, again, Holy Chicken. I love Chick-fil-A. I'll go there once every couple of weeks. So shout out to Chris Lopez and Chick-fil-A there in Springfield. Other places, I'm trying to think where we've liked to eat. This is not an eat place, but every once in a while, I'll go over with a couple buddies to Mother Stewart's, and we they have food trucks there, and so it's a great opportunity to meet different people in Springfield. Actually, I've had a lot of gospel conversations there, so that's been fun. But yeah, Hi Hat I like, and then Casa de Centro.
Oh yeah,
maybe the best Mexican in Springfield. Just ate there yesterday. Love their fajitas. Loved everything I had there.
I had the soup there not too long ago for lunch, and it was very good. Yeah.
Yep.
A small everyday Springfield routine or spot that makes you happy.
Ooh, a small spot in Springfield that makes me happy. Well, this one, I'm kind of joking about this, but I always like going through Tsunami Car Wash because my car is nice and clean. Because my car just gets dirty all the time. And so I always feel good about that. But all joking aside with that, every once in a while, I like to just go down to Snyder Park and walk around. I'm trying to do some more intentional prayer. And so just trying to find places outside that I can go to just be. And so I like that. I'm a golfer. I'll tell you, I have a membership at Reed Golf Course, and every time I'm there, I'm very happy. And again, I walk a lot, and so just walking the course is good. Windy Knoll, that just got bought out recently, or purchased recently. I've been there a couple times. So I love golf. I think God and golf go closely together, out in the green of a golf course, and just spending some time in silence is good.
One thing people get wrong about Springfield that you would set straight?
Man. Well, Springfield's been on the news, obviously, over the last couple of years. And I think what people get wrong about Springfield from outside Springfield is that Springfield people just are angry, or that they hate certain people. I just don't ever get that sense. Every time I meet people in Springfield, I meet people that, not that everybody's a Christian, but people are generally very welcoming and kind. Every town's going to have people that are rough around the edges. But I think people outside of Springfield probably get this idea that we're a hurting city, or we're a city that is got all sorts of conflict. And I see the exact opposite. I see God doing amazing things in Springfield. And I think it's a lot of because of the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Totally. And why we're going to continue to tell these stories about Springfield. And so, yeah, absolutely.
No.
Coffee order, simple or complicated?
Simple, black coffee. That's how it's supposed to be drank.
From Scouts.
Scouts. Yeah, medium. Highlander grog.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I used to go to right up the road here, and it doesn't exist anymore, which is why I'm blanking on the name, Ironworks.
Oh.
And they used to every once in a while make Jamaican me crazy. And so I would go there a lot. But yeah, black coffee, Scouts win.
Gotcha. One 90s song you'll always turn up.
Oh, man. There's a lot of 90s songs, but I got to go with 1995 Coolio's Gangster's Paradise. Classic. I know all the words. Sing it every time it's it's on the radio. And I listen to 90s at 9, so it's a lot.
Best state you've visited? Alaska is still on the list.
Best state that I've ever visited. That's a really good question. Man, so I grew up in Colorado, so I lived there for almost 9 years. So I can't really say I visited there. Oh, man, that's a really good question. Best state I've ever visited. I'm going to say Hawaii, just because it's very unique. There's a lot of parts of Hawaii I didn't like, but just being on an island out in the middle of the Pacific and knowing that my life was in the balance. I'm actually terrified of sharks. And so knowing that every time I walked into the water, I was about to die was kind of exhilarating. I didn't get to surf, but I would have loved to do that. If I wouldn't say Hawaii, I would probably say second. This is really weird. And I don't mean it because I like what's happening in the state of California, but my wife and I went on a road trip in the northern part of California, and we got to go to the Sequoia National Forest and see the huge sequoia trees. We went to Yosemite. Beautiful. And again, I'm an outdoor guy, so anytime I get to be in nature like that. So California, northern part.
And it's definitely a unique place. I mean, obviously from one end of California to the other, the weather. I mean, how can you beat that weather? But it's not Ohio weather. And
that's why I struggle sometimes. I mean, if there's any beef for Ohio, it's, there's some misery that we deal with from like November to March. And, Colorado, where I grew up, has over 300 days of blue skies and sunshine. I don't mind the cold. It's just, if I don't see the sun, can I get an amen? Like, that's hard. Yeah. I need the sun. SON and SUN.
Yes. American Ninja Warrior obstacle versus an Ohio winter. What's harder?
Oh, Ohio winter. When I was on American Ninja Warrior, I trained so hard. I lost like 40 pounds. I was trying to get into the best shape of my life. And I fell on an obstacle that had nothing to do with strength. It was all about balance. It was called snake crossing. And so in my Bible reading, I read that, Jesus is going to stomp the head of the snake, but man, the snake still bites, and it took the pastor down. So I was pretty disappointed about that. But yeah, winters in Ohio, brutal.
Yeah.
I pray every time.
Your last name's Winter, though.
Right. I was the winter warrior. I like the winter. I'm not saying I don't like the winter. I just don't like not seeing the sun for days on end. And I think that's just sometimes what happens in the Midwest is we just go cloudy, gray. Even the rain is not the worst. It's just, I need the sun.
Yeah. Yep. So if you ever make it onto Survivor, what's your tribe name?
Ooh. Well, they give you your tribe name, but if I had the chance to pick it, I have never been asked that question. That's a good question. Well, it's in Fiji, so it has to have some sort of like tribal name. Okay. My tribe name would be Tribe Chutzpah. It's a Jewish term of having like just gumption or like grit. We'd be Tribe Chutzpah. And I would win, by the way.
Absolutely. We'd be rooting for you.
Cool.
You'd have a lot of local people pulling for you.
I'm still holding my breath, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. So Ken, really appreciate your time. So tell us about the event coming up at the end of August.
Yeah, August 30th, Church in the Park, hosted by Heritage Fellowship Church. All are welcome. Our goal and vision this year is just to reach as many people with the gospel as possible. The theme is But God. So come out 10 a.m. Love to have you. Opportunity to worship together with the church here in Springfield, experience and encounter, hopefully, God doing mighty things in the lives of many people through baptisms. And then at the conclusion, we'll have just some time to fellowship around some food trucks and kids' activities and just time to be together.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted.
Well, thank you again for joining us for Live from Springfield, USA. Church in the Park is Sunday, August 30th at Veterans Park Amphitheater. The park opens at 9. Service begins at 10. Dress for the weather. The complete details at heritagefc.net.